All right, so you sent in like a whole stack of articles on credit scores, and I gotta say it looked pretty intimidating at first.
Yeah.
But as I was going through it, I really started to see it as like a treasure map
Oh, yeah.
to financial freedom, and like personalized for you.
Yeah, a lot of people get overwhelmed when they think about their credit scores.
Mm-hmm.
But these sources you sent in, they break it all down into these manageable steps.
Okay.
And that's what we're going to do today.
Okay.
Walk through this journey together.
So like the first thing I noticed is that they all really focus on knowing your credit report,
Right.
like inside and out, not just what the number is.
Yeah, it's more than just a number.
Right.
It's really like a detailed record of all your financial habits.
So it's kind of like you wouldn't just glance at your bank account balance and assume everything's correct.
Right.
You go through and you check each transaction.
Exactly. You would
Oh.
scrutinize it. You want to give your credit report the same level of attention. You'd be surprised how many people have errors on the reports that are really dragging their score down.
And they don't even know.
And they don't even realize it.
So it's not just about knowing the score.
Right.
It's understanding like the details behind it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so speaking of details, the articles mention annualcreditreport.com as like a resource for getting these reports. Is that the best place to start?
Absolutely. That's the only website that is authorized by the federal government
Okay,
to give you free copies of your credit report from all 3 of the major credit bureaus.
gotcha.
And you can get them once a year for free.
Nice.
I highly recommend that you do that.
Okay.
Because once you have those reports,
Yeah.
you can start looking for any of those inaccuracies that might be affecting your score.
Okay, so we got our reports, we double-checked for errors, and now we're ready to start building up that credit score foundation.
Exactly. The sources call this stage of getting to a credit score of between 450 and 600 as laying the groundwork. It's not about any flashy moves or anything like that.
Right.
It's about building those solid, consistent habits.
So what are like the key building blocks here?
Yeah. Well, the sources outline 4 crucial steps.
Okay.
And the first one, which might seem obvious but is absolutely vital, is paying your bills on time.
Okay. That makes sense, but why is that so important?
Well, it makes up 35% of your credit score.
Wow.
So think about it from a lender's perspective.
Okay.
If you are consistently paying your bills on time, it shows them that you're responsible and that you're trustworthy.
Okay. I'm starting to see why they emphasize it so much.
Yeah.
But life gets busy. Sometimes things slip our minds.
Right.
What are some strategies from the sources for staying on top of all those payments?
Well, technology is a lifesaver here.
Mm-hmm.
Setting up auto pay for recurring bills
Yeah.
is a great way to make sure you never miss a due date.
Yeah.
And even if you don't want to automate everything, calendar reminders or payment tracking apps can help you stay organized.
Yeah. I actually use a budgeting app that sends me notifications like a couple days before a bill is due.
There you go.
It's been a game changer.
Yeah, it's all about finding what works for you.
Right.
And remember, if you do find yourself struggling to make a payment, don't just ignore it.
Okay.
Reach out to the creditor and explain your situation.
Mm-hmm.
You might be surprised how willing they are to work with you.
Okay.
Maybe to set up a payment plan or adjust the due date.
Right.
Being proactive is key.
Communication is key.
Absolutely.
It's always better to like address the issue head on
Yeah,
than just letting it snowball into something bigger.
exactly.
So paying bills on time, that's step one.
That's step 1.
What's next on this credit building journey?
The next step is understanding credit utilization.
Okay.
This is where it gets a little more complex,
Okay.
but it's worth wrapping your head around because it has a significant impact on your score.
Okay. I'll admit, I've always been a little fuzzy on this one, so break it down for me.
Okay.
And for our listeners.
In the simplest terms, credit utilization is the amount of available credit that you're using at any given time.
Okay.
So for example, if you have a credit card with a $1,000 limit
Mm-hmm.
and you have a $300 balance on that card,
Okay.
your credit utilization is 30%.
Okay, I'm following so far, but what does that percentage actually mean for my score?
Well, lower is always better.
Okay.
Aiming for a credit utilization rate below 30% is a good rule of thumb.
Gotcha.
Lenders like to see that you're not maxing out your credit cards.
Okay.
It shows them that you're managing your finances responsibly.
So even if I'm paying my bills on time,
Yeah,
carrying a high balance can still like hurt my score?
exactly. It's not just about paying on time.
Okay.
It's about how much of your available credit you're actually using.
This is where those aha moments happen.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Yeah.
So we're paying bills on time.
Mm-hmm.
We're keeping our credit utilization low.
Yes.
What's the next step in building this solid credit foundation?
That brings us to building a positive credit history.
Okay.
Now, if you're starting with a lower score, you might not have a ton of positive history to work with.
Right.
But don't worry. There are tools specifically designed to help you establish credit.
Okay, like what the sources recommend?
They mention secured credit cards and credit builder loans
Okay.
as great starting points.
Okay.
And what's fascinating about these tools is that they're essentially designed to help people build credit.
That's interesting. I've heard of these before, but I've never really understood how they work. Could you maybe explain using an example?
Sure, imagine you get a secured credit card.
Okay.
You put down a deposit, let's say $500.
Mm-hmm.
That deposit becomes your credit limit.
Okay.
So you're essentially using your own money to guarantee that line of credit.
Okay.
You use the card for small purchases. You pay your bill on time each month.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, this responsible behavior gets reported to the credit bureaus, and it helps you establish a positive credit history.
So it's almost like training wheels for building credit.
Exactly. And the same principle applies to credit builder loans.
Okay.
You take out a small loan. The money is often held in a savings account until you pay it back.
Okay.
And each on-time payment strengthens your credit history.
Okay. So those are really helpful options for somebody starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And it seems like these days, with so many online resources, it's easier than ever to find and compare these types of tools.
You're absolutely right. Websites like NerdWallet or Credit Karma can provide personalized recommendations based on your credit profile
Okay.
and help you find the best fit for your situation.
Perfect.
But the key, regardless of which tool you choose, is responsible use.
Mm-hmm.
Small purchases paid in full each month.
Okay.
That's the recipe for building positive credit.
Solid advice. So we've got paying bills on time, managing our credit utilization, building positive history. What's the final piece of this foundational stage?
The final step is all about avoiding common traps.
Ooh, traps.
Yeah, those seemingly small mistakes. That can actually have a big impact on your credit score.
That sounds dangerous. I'm ready to learn how to avoid them.
Well,
What are we watching out for?
All right, so one of the biggest traps, and it's mentioned in several of the sources, is closing old credit card accounts.
Okay. So why is that bad?
Well, closing an account can actually hurt your credit score in a couple of ways.
Okay.
First, it reduces your total available credit,
Okay.
which can increase your credit utilization ratio. Remember we talked about that?
Yeah.
Even if your spending stays the same,
Mm-hmm.
if your available credit goes down, your utilization goes up, and that can lower your score.
Okay.
Second, closing an old account can shorten the length of your credit history.
Right.
And lenders like to see a long and established track record of responsible credit use.
So it's like the longer you've been playing the game, the more points you get.
Kind of, it shows that you've been able to manage credit over time.
Makes sense. So we want to keep those old accounts open, even if we're not using them.
Yeah, it's generally a good idea to keep them open as long as they're not costing you any annual fees or anything like that.
Okay, good to know. Now, what about collections? This comes up in a lot of the articles, too.
Right. Ignoring collections is another major mistake people make.
Okay, so what's the best way to deal with those?
The key here is to be proactive.
Mm-hmm.
Don't wait for the collection agency to come after you.
Right.
Reach out to them, explain your situation, and try to negotiate a payment plan.
Okay.
Sometimes they might even be willing to agree to a pay-for-delete arrangement.
A pay-for-delete, what's that?
Basically, you agree to pay off the debt, and in exchange, they agree to remove the collection from your credit report.
Oh, wow, that sounds like a good deal.
You can be, but you have to get it in writing.
Of course.
Make sure you have a clear agreement before you make any payments.
Okay, so the big takeaway here is don't bury your head in the sand when it comes to collections.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Face those challenges head on
Yeah.
and be proactive about finding solutions.
All right, so we've talked about laying the groundwork, avoiding those credit traps. Right.
What happens next in this credit score journey?
That's where things get really interesting.
Ooh.
Now that you've built a solid foundation and your score is moving up,
Yeah.
it's time to start thinking more strategically.
Okay.
The sources you provided talk about this next stage, getting from 600 to 700, as all about diversification.
Diversification. I know that's a big word in investing,
Mm-hmm.
but what does it mean in the world of credit scores?
It means expanding your credit mix.
Okay.
So far, we've talked about secured cards and credit builder loans, which are great for establishing credit.
Right.
But as your score improves, you can start exploring other types of credit
Okay.
to demonstrate to lenders that you can manage different kinds of debt responsibly.
So it's like showing lenders that you're a well-rounded credit user,
Exactly.
not
Yeah.
just relying on one type of credit.
Right.
So what kinds of credit should we be adding to the mix?
Well, unsecured credit cards are a great option.
Okay.
Unlike secured cards, these don't require a deposit.
And they often come with better perks, like rewards programs or travel benefits.
Ooh, rewards, now we're talking.
Right.
But I imagine there are some things to keep in mind before just jumping into the world of unsecured cards.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's crucial to be strategic about your applications.
Okay.
Don't just apply for every card that sends you a shiny offer in the mail.
Right.
Each application triggers a hard inquiry on your credit report.
Right.
And too many of those in a short period can actually lower your score.
So it's like a balancing act.
Yeah.
You want to diversify but not go overboard with applications.
Exactly. It's about being mindful and doing your research. Look for cards that align with your spending habits and your financial goals.
Okay.
And remember, the goal is to build credit responsibly,
Right.
not accumulate a bunch of cards that you don't need.
It's not about collecting them like trophies.
Right.
It's about using them wisely to build a strong credit profile.
Yeah.
Speaking of building a strong profile, the sources also mention personal loans. Is that another piece of the diversification puzzle?
It can be, yes.
Okay.
Adding a personal loan to your credit mix shows lenders that you can handle installment credit responsibly,
Okay.
which is different from revolving credit, like credit cards.
Okay, can you explain the difference between installment and revolving credit? I'm not sure I fully grasped that distinction.
Sure. Installment credit is a loan that you repay in fixed monthly payments over a set period of time,
Okay,
like a car loan or a mortgage.
gotcha.
Revolving credit, on the other hand, allows you to borrow up to a certain limit
Okay,
and make flexible payments, like with a credit card.
gotcha.
Having a mix of both types on your credit report shows lenders that you're capable of managing those different repayment structures.
So a personal loan can help diversify my credit mix and show lenders I'm comfortable with installment payments.
Yeah,
Are there any other benefits to consider?
absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the most compelling reasons to consider a personal loan in this stage is debt consolidation. If you have high-interest credit card debt, you could potentially use a personal loan to pay off those balances
Okay.
and consolidate them into a single lower-interest loan.
So you're essentially swapping out high-interest debt for a lower-interest option,
Exactly.
which could save you money in the long run.
Exactly. And those savings can be significant, especially if you're carrying a large balance.
Right.
Plus, as you make those consistent on-time payments on the personal loan,
Mm-hmm.
you're further strengthening your credit history.
It's a win-win.
It is.
This is where it all starts coming together. It's not just about like following rules. It's about understanding how different types of credit interact
Yeah.
and how we can use them strategically to our advantage.
You got it.
Speaking of control, this stage is also a prime time to get even more serious about monitoring your credit utilization.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we already cover that back in the foundation stage?
We did touch on it, but
Yeah.
now we're taking it up a notch.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about aiming for a utilization rate below 30%? Well, in this stage, striving for an even lower rate, like 10% or even lower,
Yeah.
can really boost your score.
Wow. So even though 30% is considered good, going lower is even better, why is that?
Think of it this way. When you're using a smaller percentage of your available credit,
Okay.
it signals to lenders that you're not reliant on credit to make ends meet.
Mm-hmm.
It shows you're managing your finances well and not overextending yourself.
That makes sense. It's like showing lenders that you're using credit as a tool, not a crutch.
Exactly.
So we're diversifying our credit mix, being strategic about new credit managing our utilization, like pros. Is there anything else we should be doing in this stage?
One more strategy the sources highlight is becoming an authorized user on a responsible friend or family member's credit card.
I've heard of this, but never really understood how it works. Can you
Yeah.
break it down?
Sure, when you become an authorized user on someone else's account, their credit history becomes part of your credit report.
Okay.
So if they have a long history of on-time payments and low credit utilization,
Yeah.
their positive credit behavior can actually boost your score.
Wait, so I can benefit from somebody else's good credit habits?
Again,
That's amazing. But I imagine there are some risks involved too, right?
there are. It's essential to choose someone that you trust implicitly,
Okay.
someone who manages their credit responsibly.
Right.
Because if they start missing payments or maxing out their cards, their negative behavior will also show up on your report and
Oh.
drag your score down.
So choose your credit buddies wisely.
Yes, choose them wisely.
It's a powerful strategy, but it's not without its potential downsides.
Exactly. It's all about weighing the pros and cons and making sure it aligns with your overall credit building goals.
Gotcha, but it's definitely something to consider in this stage.
Yeah.
This has been eye-opening: diversification, strategic borrowing, managing utilization, and even leveraging the good credit of others. Who knew there were so many layers to building a great credit score?
It's true. There's a lot more to it than just paying your bills on time.
Right.
But the good news is, with a little knowledge and effort,
Yeah.
you can take control of your credit journey and unlock those financial opportunities that come with a great score.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground, and I'm sure our listeners taking it all in, but I'm curious, what are some of the challenges that people typically face in this stage?
Mm-hmm.
Because let's be real, even with the best intentions, there are always bumps in the road.
You're absolutely right. And you know what? That's actually a perfect segue into the final stage of our credit score journey,
Okay.
where we'll tackle those challenges head on.
All right, I'm ready. Bring on the challenges.
Oh, all right. So
Yeah.
let's dive into the final stage of building excellent credit
All right, I'm excited.
and talk about those common roadblocks that people often encounter.
So what are some of those stumbling blocks that people might hit as they get closer to that excellent credit score?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Once people start seeing your credit score rise, they sometimes fall into a trap.
Ooh, a trap, do tell.
It's the temptation to overspend.
Yeah.
You know, you've got a good score.
Yeah.
You're getting those tempting credit card offers with all the enticing rewards programs.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easy to get caught up in the excitement and lose sight of your budget.
Oh, yeah. I can definitely see that happening. It's like reaching a new level in a video game and suddenly having access to all these powerful new items.
Yeah.
But just because you can buy them doesn't mean that you should.
Exactly. And that's where the sources really emphasize the importance of budgeting and mindful spending.
Mm-hmm.
They're not saying deprive yourself,
Right.
but rather make conscious choices
Yeah.
that are aligned with your financial goals.
So it's about taking a moment before swiping that card and asking yourself, do I really need this, or is it just a want?
Precisely. And, you know, one of the sources had this great tip about visualizing your financial goals.
Huh.
Imagine that dream vacation you're saving for,
Yeah.
or that down payment on a house.
Yeah.
Keeping that picture in mind
Mhm.
can make it easier to resist those impulse purchases
Right.
that might derail your progress.
I love that it's like having a financial vision board. But even with the best intentions, sometimes those pre-approved credit card offers can be really tempting.
Oh, absolutely.
They make it seem so easy to just get more credit.
Right, and that's another challenge. So the sources highlight the allure of those pre-approved offers.
Mm-hmm.
They land in your mailbox, and it feels like free money, right?
It does.
But remember, each application, even for a pre-approved offer, triggers a hard inquiry on your credit report.
Right. We talked about hard inquiries earlier. So
Right.
even if I'm pre-approved and think I'll definitely get the card, it's still not necessarily a free pass.
Not quite too many hard inquiries in a short period can make lenders think you're desperate for credit.
Okay.
And that can actually hurt your score.
Gotcha.
The sources recommend being very selective with applications. Only apply for credit when you genuinely need it
Okay.
and have done your research to find the best terms and rates.
It's like
Yeah.
dating. You don't want to jump into a relationship with the first person who shows interest.
That's a great analogy.
You want to take your time, get to know them, and make sure they're the right fit. Exactly. It's about being intentional and discerning with your credit choices.
Yeah.
And speaking of choices, this might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes having too much available credit can be a challenge.
Wait, how can having more credit be a bad thing? Isn't that what we're working towards?
It's a bit of a double-edged sword.
Okay.
While a high credit limit can be beneficial for your utilization ratio, some lenders might view a large amount of available credit as a potential risk.
Okay.
They might worry that you could max out all those cards and end up in debt.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Yes.
Having enough credit to show you can manage it responsibly,
Right.
but not so much that it raises red flags for lenders.
Exactly. And that's a key theme that runs through all these challenges. It's about balance and intentionality.
Right.
It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware of those potential pitfalls and making informed choices that align with your long-term financial goals.
That's such a great takeaway, and it really ties back to what we talked about at the beginning.
Yeah.
Knowing your credit report,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the factors that influence your score,
Yeah,
and taking control of your credit journey.
absolutely. And as you navigate these challenges and continue building that excellent credit score, it's important to remember the why behind it all.
Yes. What's the ultimate reward? Why are we putting in all this effort?
It's about unlocking financial freedom and opportunities.
Okay.
A great credit score can help you secure lower interest rates on loans,
Mhm.
which can save you thousands of dollars over the life of the loan.
Right.
It can qualify you for better credit cards with rewards programs and perks.
Yeah.
It can even make it easier to get approved for an apartment or a mortgage.
So it's not just about a number. It's about opening doors to a brighter financial future.
That's a perfect way to put it, and that's what makes this journey so worthwhile.
Mhm.
It's not always easy, but the payoff is significant.
Wow. We've covered so much ground today, from understanding the basics of credit reports to navigating the challenges of building excellent credit.
Yeah.
It's been a really insightful deep dive.
Yeah, it has. Do you have any final words of wisdom for our listener as they continue on their credit journey?
I'd leave them with this thought. If your credit score could talk, what advice would it give you right now?
Ooh.
And what's one small action you can take this week to start moving in that direction?
That's such a powerful question. It really encourages reflection and action. And remember, this is just the beginning of your financial exploration. We have a whole library of deep dives on topics ranging from budgeting and investing to homeownership and retirement planning, all designed to help you build a brighter financial future.
So stay curious, keep learning, and keep those questions coming.
Thanks for joining us on this credit score adventure. Until next time, happy exploring.